Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All or Nothing podcast. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am your host, Caitlin Green, and I am so glad you're here. I am recording audio and video at the moment, but I just had a moment of thinking that maybe put the video version, the YouTube, on hold for a little bit. It seems to me that the Apple and Spotify is a little more popular in the moment. And it's just a lot of work to do both audio and video and upload in multiple places and all of that. So let me know your feedback. If you're like, whoa, hold on a second, I watch on YouTube. Let me know and I can continue doing the whole YouTube thing. But if not, and you all are like, I listen on Apple, I listen on Spotify, I listen on the Podbean app or on Google or whatever, let me know your feedback, where you listen, how you listen, and which way you prefer. I do know that Apple Podcast, I think recently added a version where you can do video, and I think Spotify too, and I need to figure out how to do that. I don't necessarily know how to do that, so I need to look into that and see if that's time consuming, because my time is getting cut short, but I don't want to stop the podcast. I want to be able to continue it, but I just have so much on my plate to do, and so I'm trying to figure out where I can cut out things and, have time for everything kind of thing. So again, don't want to stop the podcast. I want to keep going. I want to keep doing it because I think it's so important. And we're just going to figure it out. But let me know where you listen and we can go from there. Today we are continuing in the book of James. We are on chapter 5. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about a materialistic heart posture, aka talking about the rich. It's a warning to the rich, but if you're not rich, that's okay. You can still listen. This passage is short that we're going to read. It's 6 verses, but there's still quite a bit here. And I know the episodes recently have been slightly shorter, and that's fine. I actually prefer that, and I'm sure y'all do too, because you're probably thinking like, I don't have an hour to sit down and listen to a podcast. So trying to make them a little shorter, which is why we do little sections and such. But it's 6 verses, but it has a very prophetic tone, almost like an Old Testament warning. And so James makes a shift here. And he goes from addressing believers directly to denouncing wealthy oppressors whose materialism and injustice reveal corrupt hearts. However, it also confronts believers about the danger of loving wealth. So that's what we're going to be talking about. It's verses 1 through 6 in chapter 5. And basically it's the danger of wealth without God. Material wealth, it becomes spiritually dangerous when it fosters pride, self-indulgence, and injustice instead of stewardship before God. So connecting to the flow here that James has going on, he has been exposing the root problem of pride. And now he shows how that pride often reveals itself through wealth and materialism. So once again, it's not a condemning thing. He is not condemning the thing, like he's not condemning wealth. So if you are a Christian and you are wealthy, you are very blessed in that area, don't feel guilty. It's okay that those are blessings from God. And honestly, this is something that I have struggled with personally. Is I'm not rich. Okay, I'm not saying I'm rich, but sometimes I do feel guilty that I am extremely blessed. I look around my house of all the furniture and stuff we have that we've been working on the past 3 years, and each piece of furniture or each item in our home is literally an answered prayer. It is literally a testament of God's faithfulness, and it's just each thing is a blessing. And I know that's like materialistic, and that's, it's a couch, it's a chair, it's a whatever, but to me, it's an answered prayer. It's God providing. It's a blessing. At the same time, though, even though those are blessings and I enjoy those and I thank the Lord for them and their answered prayers, I do struggle sometimes with feeling guilty about that. And like, I am so blessed compared to some people. There's some people that don't even have a couch or have a dining room table or have the money for food or whatever. And so it's like, sometimes I feel guilty and feel like I should be worse off. Life should be harder. Not that life isn't hard, but like, I don't know. Like, does that make sense? I feel like sometimes I feel guilty and feel like I'm too blessed. I have too many things. Like, God has blessed me too much, but wealth or being blessed in that type of way is not the problem. Because like I said, those things for me, those are answered prayers. That's God blessing us, right? And he can do the same for you too. Don't need to feel guilty. It's not bad. Wealth is not bad. So James is not condemning wealth. He's not condemning Christians for having money. He's not condemning Christians for having materialistic things. He's not condemning any of that. James here is actually condemning the heart posture, because literally it's always the condition of the heart. That's always the problem. That's always what's being addressed here, is the heart posture, right? So it's a heart problem. Wealth isn't the problem. It's the heart behind it that can be the problem. So let's read verses 1 through 6. It's chapter 5. It's a warning to the rich. So it says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in your last days, or in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you." So you can kind of tell just by some of the words as you read those verses that it's more of a spiritual thing and more of the heart, like I said. But let's explain that. So in verse 1, it's a prophetic warning. It says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you." So the tone here is, it's urgent, it's strong, it's prophetic, right? And this language echoes the Old Testament prophets who warned wealthy oppressors of the coming judgment that they would face. The problem here, again, isn't having wealth. It's trusting wealth and abusing power. He wants people, James, he wants people to understand that earthly wealth can't shield us, can't shield anyone from God's judgment. With last week's episode, we saw that James developed this idea of the need for complete dependence on God, which is why at the beginning I said the danger of wealth without God, because that was something he was talking about last week, is saying, boasting about tomorrow and your future that may not come, But the problem is doing it without God, doing it without being dependent on God, doing it independently, basically. And so that's the problem here too, needing complete dependence on God. So he now rebukes those who most likely live independently from God, which is the rich, most likely. But Jesus had some rich people among his followers. For example, Barnabas, or Joseph of Arimathea, and Zacchaeus. So riches itself isn't bad. But we also have to see that riches do present an additional and significant obstacle to the kingdom. It can become a problem. It's not bad, but it can be. It's also true that the pursuit of riches is a motivation for every conceivable sin. So James goes on to tell the rich to mourn in consideration of their destiny. In the life to come, their riches will be revealed as corrupted, moth-eaten, and corroded, which is exactly what he says in verses 2 through 3, which leads me to the next point, that is the futility of hoarded wealth. So James lists 3 images of decaying wealth: rotting riches, moth-eaten garments, and corroded gold and silver. Imagine this imagery. In the ancient world, wealth was often stored as clothing, precious metals, and grain. James is saying that everything they trusted in is literally wasting away. They all come to nothing in their own way. Verse 3 says, "Will be a witness against you. The corruptible nature of the wealth of the rich will witness against them. So on the day of judgment, it will be revealed that they have lived their lives in the arrogant independence that James previously condemned. Independence from God, heaping up earthly treasure in the last days when they should have been heaping up treasure in heaven." Verse number 4 is about exploiting the vulnerable. So verse 4 says, "Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts." So James here exposes the real injustice. Wages of laborers, which is what it says, day laborers were often paid at the end of each day. Withholding those wages meant that the families went hungry and workers suffered. But then it talks about fraud. This is deferring payment, which is a type of defrauding or fraud. The cries of the harvesters, the workers, it says they reach the ears of the Lord of hosts. So the Lord of hosts means the Lord of heaven's armies, God. So these harvesters, workers, they are under this fraud, and they basically cry out to God, to the Lord of hosts. And it says that their cries reach the ears of the Lord of hosts, which means God heard them. God hears their cries, right? This also gives a picture of God as a warrior going into battle. He's the commander in chief of all heavenly armies. The use of this title, the Lord of hosts, was meant to give these unjust each a sober warning. James emphasizes that God hears the cries of the oppressed, right? So these harvesters, these workers are oppressed because their employers, or whatever you want to call them, is committing fraud. And so these harvesters, these workers, they're struggling because, like I said, with the fraud and their wages being withheld, families go hungry, workers suffer. So they're crying out to God, and their cries reach the Lord of hosts, meaning God hears them. So James emphasizes that, saying that God hears the cries of the oppressed. Then verse 5 talks about the self-indulgent living. It says, "You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence," which is here, this shows the real issue of the whole rich, and that wealth isn't bad, but when it includes self-indulgence or self-indulgent living, that's the problem. Because again, it says you have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. Living in luxury isn't bad. Again, it's the heart behind it. Are you living in luxury, but also, giving and serving, and that's just God blessing you and you bless others with it? Are you stewarding it? Or is it all about me, self-indulgence, what I can get, living it up with the things that I have and the money and all of that? So James paints a picture of people who hoard wealth, exploit workers, and live in excess. He uses a striking phrase. In verse 5, it says, "You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence." But it continues on and says, "You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter." So that phrase, "fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter," this means like livestock being fattened before judgment. Basically, luxury without compassion hardens your heart. So it's a spiritual thing that it's saying, fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. You were focused on the wrong things. You were focused on self, on me, and focused on hoarding your wealth or being selfish, being greedy, being focused on materialistic things. And what did it do? It hardened your heart, because that's the problem with the riches and the wealth. Again, riches and wealth isn't the problem. It's the heart behind it. Riches and wealth isn't bad, but if you're not careful, it can harden your heart, because you can become, again, greedy, selfish, self-indulgent, and very materialistic. It's very easy to do, but you can also be wealthy and rich and do good things with it. You can also be wealthy and rich and serve and give and there's a song that I recently listened to. My husband plays it, and I don't know who sings it. Probably like Maverick City or something. I don't even know if it's called Bless Me, but that's the lyrics. It says, bless me, so I can bless the ones around me. And ultimately, like we've talked about this a little bit, of that our money is not ours. It's ultimately God's. It's not ours. And if we live with that perspective, with that mindset that our money ultimately is God's, He's just blessed us with it, and we have to steward what He's blessed us with, whether it's little or much, right? And so whether it's little or much, we are to give, we are to serve, we are to steward what He's given us. And so when we live with that perspective, it's a lot less possible for us to harden our hearts and be selfish and greedy. And that's like the goal, is to steward what God has given us, not become selfish and greedy and materialistic, right? Verse 6, which is the last verse, then is condemning the righteous. James ends with a final accusation. He says, "You have condemned and murdered the righteous person." And then it says, "He does not resist you." This could refer to legal oppression, economic oppression, or systems that crush the vulnerable. The righteous have no power to resist. They don't have the power to stop the wicked. But God sees and God hears their cries. But God sees and God hears their cries. He is the one to ultimately right every wrong and answer every injustice. He defends, God defends those who cannot defend themselves. I told you this episode was going to be really short, and maybe some of you are thinking, like, what's the point here? Because there's, I don't know, I feel like it's all over the place. It's been a little wonky with these 6 verses, but basically this passage is not condemning success or provision, especially, these blessings that come from God. It's not condemning that, every good and perfect gift comes from above, comes from God. So it's not condemning the provision. It's not condemning success. It is confronting greed, hoarding, exploitation, trusting wealth instead of God, or trusting in your wealth without God. even if it is coming from God, because that's possible too. So basically, ask yourself, do I see my resources as mine or God's? Because again, I feel like when we shift our perspective and we focus on everything that we're blessed with comes from God, and it's not ours. It's ultimately His, and He's given it to us for a reason. So how can we use what God has given us, whether it's our time, our money, our resources, our skills, our talents, our whatever, how can we use it for His glory? Because He's given it to you. So how can you use it to glorify Him? And how can you use it to bless others, help others? Because again, that's going to help you if you have that perspective on the daily that my money isn't mine, my time really isn't mine, my resources, my skills, my talents, God has given those to me to bless others, to help others, to glorify Him. So how can I do that? If we have that type of perspective, we're less likely to become greedy. We're less likely to become selfish. We're less likely to become, is it discontent or uncontent, not content? It can bring comparison. It can bring non-contentment, and if you're trying to live a content life, I think that helps having that type of perspective. But also ask yourself, does my lifestyle reflect generosity or self-indulgence? Again, the things God has given you and everything, it's not just for you. It's not just to bless you and for you to have a lot of things or have a lot of money. He provides for what we need, yes, but He gives far more than that. Why? So that we can bless and help others, and so that we can glorify Him in it as well. So if our life reflects generosity, it means that we see our things are what He's given us as His, and we're blessing others. And yes, tithing is important. I think that's a perfect place to start, but it's not just tithing. Again, like I said, it's your time, it's your talents, whatever you're able to do. How can you help somebody in that way? It's in all those areas. But if your life reflects self-indulgence, then no, you're not very generous, most likely. You have the wrong perspective on the materialistic things you have. You aren't really thinking about your talents and your gifts and things as if like God's blessed you with them. How can you use them for Him? You're probably, again, more focused on self, me, of how can I get more? How can I, be happy? How can I be successful? Which success isn't the end all be all. It's not bad, but it's not the most important thing. And if maybe some of you, and lastly, ask yourself, am I aware of the needs around me? And when I ask that, I'm not asking like, are you aware of the person on the side of the road that's homeless? I'm not asking that. Maybe, you go and help somebody out that way. But again, time, money, resources, maybe just encouraging people. Maybe that's how you give encouragement. Maybe volunteering somewhere, maybe whatever, like literally the list goes on. But are you aware of the needs around you? The needs may be in your own family or, a friend of yours. How can you help? How can you be generous? How can you, not be self-indulgent and steward what God has given you? So as we end, again, this is a really short episode, and since I'm probably just doing audio, it's probably going to be even shorter, but I encourage you to pray over this and about this. And first of all, gratitude for provision. Pray and thank the Lord for what He's given you, how He has provided, how He has been faithful. And if you can't necessarily see that in the moment, then ask Him to help you. Ask Him to help you see the things that He has provided and how He has moved and how He has blessed you so that you can be grateful and have gratitude and thank Him for those things. I also encourage you to pray for freedom from greed. So either praying and thanking the Lord for freedom from greed, or praying for freedom from greed. Maybe you know that you kind of are a greedy person. You're a little selfish. You're a little me. Then pray for freedom. Pray that Jesus sets you free from that and helps you to not have a greedy heart and to not be selfish, and to, which leads me to the third thing that I encourage you to pray for, is a heart of generosity. A heart of generosity and stewardship. Of, like, maybe you don't have a heart of generosity. Pray for it. Pray that the Lord helps you to be generous. And again, that can start with tithing, but it can be so many other things. And so just asking the Lord where, how, when for generosity. Where do you want me to give? How do you want me to give? What do you want me to give? Is it money? Is it resources? Is it time? Is it my skills? Is it my knowledge? Like, what is it? You know, generosity, like, isn't just money, and it isn't just giving to like the poor or to your church. Like, it can be any type of thing. Like, that's why I say just pray and ask the Lord, because he will show you. And when you pray and ask the Lord, like, honestly and genuinely about that, it works on your heart and it helps you cultivate a desire to actually be generous. Like, if you are genuinely asking the Lord, like, Lord, show me how I can be generous today, you know, with my time, with my effort, with my skills, my talents, with my money, with my knowledge, whatever, like, it works in your heart and kind of softens your heart, and you begin to desire to be generous, to have generosity. And the Lord will open doors and present opportunities for you to be generous in some way. And that's so much better than self-indulgence, okay? And if you are someone who's truly blessed, like, thank the Lord, you know? Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty for it. If you're like me, I have felt guilty for it. And I have had friends remind me of, like, no, don't feel guilty. Like, that's God's blessings, you know? And it's hard because then you see people in other countries or even in America or whatever, that, like, they don't have as much as you. And you're like, shouldn't this, like, life be harder? I don't know, maybe that's just me, or maybe some of you feel that way too. But yeah, we don't have to feel guilty either. So not selfish, not self-indulgent, not greedy, but also, like, not guilty. We don't need to feel guilty for it because it's God blessing us for some reason. You know, maybe God blesses you with a beautiful home filled with beautiful things so that you can have people over and host and, you know, I don't know, host a Bible study or whatever, like, love people that way, you know? Like, generosity could literally just be hospitality, of you loving on people and making food for them or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's why I say go to the Lord and just ask him, because what he tells me to do may be completely different than what he tells you to do. And that's why it's so important to ask the Lord and invite him into it, because that's part of the relationship aspect between you and God, right? And again, it works on your heart. So anyway, I feel like this episode was all over the place and a little wonky, but hopefully it helped y'all. Hopefully it was encouraging to you and you learned something. And yeah, I just pray that, or I hope that you take it to the Lord, pray about it, and focus on him. Focus on him and stewarding what he has given you. That's pretty much it. We are continuing on James 5 next week, where we're going to wrap it up. I believe that's the last chapter. Yep, that's the last chapter. So we're going to wrap up the book of James next week. It's going to be the rest of chapter 5. I know it's 2 sections, but we're just going to put it all together and finish that off, and then on to our next book, which I'm not going to share just yet what that is. Still trying to figure that out and pray about it and figure out which one we should go through next, because I feel like it's going to be a long one and it's going to take a lot of time, But, ultimately I hope and pray that these episodes reach the right people, and that when it reaches you, that like it was just for you. Like God speaks to you and reveals things to you, and that it's not anything I do. It's literally the word of God speaking to you. So, because it is alive and active. So that's what I hope and pray. But yeah, we'll get to that new book and finish the book of James and all of that. But I hope you guys have a great week, a blessed week, and I will see you in the next episode.